Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine began, the nations of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, commonly known as NATO, have stood firmly by Ukraine's side. Support has come in many forms, most notably through the delivery of vital arms packages to help the country defend itself against relentless Russian assaults. Yet, despite repeated appeals from Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenskyy, Ukraine has not been granted NATO membership or the full security guarantees it provides. That, however, may soon change. At a recent summit in Vilnius, Lithuania, key European leaders and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte gathered to reiterate a powerful message: Ukraine will join NATO. The meeting brought together representatives from the Bucharest Nine, a coalition of 9 Eastern European nations formed in response to Russian aggression, and Northern European allies, including Sweden and Finland. The Bucharest Nine, or B9, includes Bulgaria, the Czech Republic, Estonia, Hungary, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Romania, and Slovakia. It was established in 2015, shortly after Russia's annexation of Crimea, to strengthen regional defense cooperation in light of growing concerns about Russian ambitions. This Vilnius summit focused on aligning security strategies across NATO's eastern flank and discussing the long-term future of Ukraine within the alliance. President Zelenskyy was present and played a central role in the discussions. Following his remarks, the attending leaders unanimously agreed to continue providing Ukraine with political, military, economic, and humanitarian support, ultimately aiming to restore peace in the region. Summit chairs, including Lithuanian President Gitanas Nausėda, Polish President Andrzej Duda, and Romanian President Nicu Șordan, issued a joint statement emphasizing NATO's resolve in countering Russian aggression. It read, in part, "We met today at a pivotal moment when the security environment continues to deteriorate as Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine claims lives, causes civilian suffering, and violates international norms. Russia remains the most significant, long-term, and direct threat to Euro-Atlantic security. NATO must be prepared for all possible contingencies." The statement further underscored NATO's importance in upholding global peace and the shared responsibility of its members to stand united. Signatories reaffirmed their commitment to increasing defense spending, with many pledging to meet or exceed the 5% GDP defense investment target. They also called for a stronger transatlantic defense industry, faster procurement, and deeper international cooperation. The declaration condemned Russia's continued aggression and criticized nations that have supported Moscow, specifically naming Iran, China, Belarus, and North Korea. But most significantly, it reaffirmed a shared and unwavering commitment to Ukraine's sovereignty, stating, "We reaffirm our unwavering support for Ukraine's independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity within its internationally recognized borders." Territorial integrity is a fundamental principle of international law, which must always be protected. The security of Ukraine is integral to the security of the Euro-Atlantic region. Yet, perhaps the most impactful moment came when NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte was asked directly whether Ukraine should join NATO by 2030. His response was unequivocal. There was a clear commitment by all 32 allies in Washington. There is an irreversible path for Ukraine to become a NATO member, not tied to an end date, not as part of a peace settlement, but as a long-term commitment. We are building that bridge right now, in Wiesbaden, in Poland, in the many collaborative efforts between NATO and Ukraine. These words will have reverberated throughout the Kremlin. Russian President Vladimir Putin has repeatedly cited NATO expansion as a primary justification for his invasion of Ukraine. Just before launching the full-scale attack in February 2022, Putin warned that NATO's potential inclusion of Ukraine could lead to direct conflict between Russia and the West, citing Russia's nuclear capabilities and warning of no winners. Since then, Russia has remained adamant that Ukraine must never join NATO. Putin has tied this demand to every offer of negotiation. In June 2024, he presented what he called a real peace proposal to Kiev, demanding that Ukrainian forces withdraw from contested regions, Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporozhye, and Kherson, and that Ukraine adopt a neutral, non-aligned, and non-nuclear status. He also reportedly seeks written guarantees from major Western powers that NATO will not expand further eastward. If granted, such a concession would not only prevent Ukraine from joining NATO, but also block other aspiring members such as Georgia, Moldova, and Bosnia and Herzegovina. For Putin, Ukraine joining NATO would be a political and strategic disaster. With Finland having joined NATO in April 2023 and Sweden following suit in March 2024, the alliance has already expanded significantly closer to Russia's borders. Ukraine's membership would seal that encirclement and solidify Putin's fears of a West-aligned Eastern Europe. Despite Russian objections, NATO's stance remains firm. Ukraine will become a member, not if, but when. And it's been a long time coming. In fact, NATO first declared its intention for Ukraine to join the alliance at the 2008 Bucharest summit. Many believe the declaration may have been the moment Putin began planning the eventual annexation of Crimea in 2014, and later the full-scale invasion of 2022. NATO accession is never immediate. For some countries like Finland and Sweden, the process took less than 2 years. For others, such as Montenegro or North Macedonia, it took nearly a decade, or even more. Ukraine's path will likely depend on the outcome of the current conflict. It is highly unlikely NATO would formally admit Ukraine during an active war. But once peace, however fragile, is achieved, the door could open. President Zelenskyy continues to push for fast-tracked entry. In 2022, shortly after the invasion began, Ukraine submitted a formal request for accelerated NATO membership. Zelenskyy argued that Ukraine had already demonstrated compliance with NATO principles and that the urgency of the situation demanded an expedited process, much like that of Finland and Sweden. He's even suggested that if his resignation could help secure Ukraine's place in the alliance, he'd be willing to step aside. It's a testament to the importance Ukraine places on joining NATO and the belief that full membership is the key to lasting peace and security.